The Father says to stop right now. This is not for everyone. This is just between you and Him. He stepped into your moment on purpose. He has stopped you mid-scroll, mid-thought, even mid-breath, because what He is about to say cannot be mixed with noise. This is not a crowd moment. There is no audience watching. No one else is listening in. Right now, it is just you and Him, face to face, heart to heart, and He wants you to understand how rare and sacred this is. This moment was written before time, long before your fears had names, long before your questions formed, long before you grew tired of being strong. He saw this exact second. He knew where you would be, what you would be carrying, and how close you would be to giving up on listening. And still, He waited. He waited for this precise moment when your heart would be quiet and vulnerable enough and open enough to hear Him without defenses. That is why you are here, not by chance, not by habit, not because you were looking for something spiritual. You are here because He brought you here. Listen carefully now. This message is not motivational. It is not general. It is not meant to inspire a crowd or be shared carelessly. It cannot be repeated because it was formed around you. Your story, your wounds, your questions, your future. This message exists because you exist. If you were not alive, these words would not be necessary. That is how personal this is. He is not speaking in broad ideas. He is speaking directly to your soul. He needs you to know something very important. He waited for this exact second. He did not rush it. He did not send these words earlier, and He will not send them later in the same way. Timing matters when love is involved. Timing matters when destiny is involved. You may feel like your life has been paused, delayed, or unclear, but heaven has not been confused. Heaven has been precise. Every step, every pause, every ache brought you here to this moment, where He can finally speak without interruption. Do not ignore this. Do not tell yourself you will come back later. Ignoring this moment will not leave things the same. Neutral does not exist here. You either receive what He is placing in front of you, or you walk away from something that cannot be recreated in the same way. He is not saying this to threaten you. He says this because truth matters. Some moments carry weight, and this is one of them. Heaven orchestrated this meeting. Angels were not guessing. This was not random alignment. He arranged every circumstance, delay, and distraction to bring you right here. You might not realize how much effort went into bringing you here, but He does. And He never wastes divine appointments. When He pauses your life, it is because something must be said now. He sees the fear trying to rise within you, that familiar tightness, that urge to pull back. He wants to remove that fear and offer closeness. You are not in trouble, nor are you judged. You are not being tested, you are being invited. There is a difference. Fear tells you to hide, but love says, come closer. And He is asking you to do that now. This is not about religion. It is not about rules, performance, or proving anything. It is not about noise, crowds, labels, or systems. Strip all of that away for a moment. This is about you and Him. Not the version that pretends to be fine, nor the one others see. The real you, the tired you, the questioning you, the hopeful you that still survives after disappointment. That is who He is speaking to. Something irreversible begins the moment you truly listen. Not when you finish these words, but when your heart opens, instead of protecting itself. When you stop analyzing and start receiving. When you allow yourself to believe, even slightly, that He is speaking directly to you. Inner shifts happen before outer changes. Seeds take root before anything breaks the surface. And right now, something is being planted that will change you forever. This is about you and Him, no one else. Not the past that shaped you, nor those who hurt you. Not the expectations placed on you. Those things have no voice here. Only you and Him. That is why this feels different. That is why your attention feels pulled. It is why you know this matters, even if you cannot explain why. This moment cannot be repeated, not because He will stop loving you, but because these moments come wrapped in unique timing, unique readiness, and unique grace. You were meant to hear this now, not before, not later. Now, when your heart is soft enough to feel, and strong enough to endure truth. Now, when you are tired of shallow answers and quiet enough to hear something deeper. What happens next will change everything, not because life will suddenly become easy, but because you will not walk it the same way anymore. Weariness changes direction. Truth changes posture. Closeness changes courage. They will begin to see things differently, responding and choosing differently, because something deep within them has shifted. He asks them to stay. No rushing. They must not multitask, letting this moment finish its work. They are not alone. They never were. And this conversation is just beginning. Right, amen. He releases his blessings today for those claiming God's promises over their lives. He reminds them of a time when it felt like just the two of them. Do they remember it? The time when the world felt quieter, even if life around them was not. A time when their hearts would soften the moment they thought of him. They didn't need many words back then. Sometimes they sat in silence. Sometimes tears came without warning. Sometimes longing filled their chests so deeply they couldn't explain it. But they knew he was there, and they felt close to him. He remembers those moments clearly. He remembers when they spoke to him honestly, without rehearsing their words, without trying to sound strong or faithful. They spoke from where they were, not where they thought they should be. He remembers when they prayed in whispers, when their faith was simple and alive, and believing didn't feel like effort. They did not analyze every feeling. They did not question every thought. They simply came to him, and he came to them. There were moments when silence itself felt holy, when they did not ask for anything, but just stayed, when their tears were not panic, but sweet release, when their hearts opened easily and trust flowed naturally. They did not need proof. They did not need explanations. They sensed his presence, and that was enough. Faith felt real back then, not because life was easy, but because closeness made everything lighter. He wants them to know this clearly. He treasures those moments. They were not small to him. They were not temporary emotions or fragile phases. They were a real connection. They were truth, and they still matter. Nothing about that closeness was imagined. Nothing about it was false. It was them responding to him freely, before fear and noise learned to interrupt. They may wonder now why that closeness faded. They may feel sadness when remembering how near he once felt. They may question themselves, wondering what they did wrong or where they failed. But he speaks with tenderness now. He is not blaming them. He is not disappointed in them. He understands what happened, and he wants them to understand it too, without shame. Life did not pull them away all at once. It happened slowly. Responsibilities grew, and disappointments accumulated. Questions multiplied. They learned to protect themselves. They learned to be strong. They learned to cope instead of surrendering. The noise crept in quietly, not always loud, but constant. Thoughts filled spaces where silence once lived. Worry replaced stillness. Pressure replaced rest. And closeness felt harder, not because he withdrew, but because their heart grew tired. They did not stop loving him. They never stopped believing. They became busy surviving, carrying weight they were never meant to carry alone. They told themselves they would return to stillness once life calmed down. They told themselves closeness could wait. And slowly, the simple connection they once had felt distant, not because it vanished, but because it was crowded out. He wants them to hear this with clarity and peace. He never moved away. He did not step back. He did not grow silent in anger, nor did he replace them with another. He remained right where he always was. That distance was not his absence. It was their exhaustion. It was their overload. Their heart was just trying to keep up with too much at once. Even when they stopped noticing him, he noticed them. Even when prayer felt forced or empty, he stayed near. Even when silence felt uncomfortable, instead of comforting, he remained patient. Love does not leave when attention fades. Love waits, and he has been waiting, not with disappointment, but with open arms. Please support this channel. Its work brings happiness and devotion to God to every viewer. If they wish, they can kindly show support by donating through Super Thanks. Those moments they remember were never meant to belong only to the past. They were foundations, not highlights. They showed them what connection feels like when trust is simple and love is uncluttered. And he reminds them of this now because that closeness can be restored, not by recreating the past, but by returning to presence. They do not need to become who they were then. They were never meant to undo growth or erase what life has taught them. He is not asking them to feel the same emotions or repeat those routines. He is asking them to come as they are now, with everything they have learned, everything they carry, and everything they question. Closeness deepens when honesty replaces effort. He is rebuilding the emotional foundation of their relationship right now. Not with pressure, not with rules, and not with guilt. With remembrance, with tenderness, with truth. They do not have to perform closeness. They only have to allow it. They do not have to force faith. They only need to be present, letting go of the belief that all was lost. Nothing real between them was ever destroyed. It was just buried by noise, not erased. And noise can be silenced. Hearts can soften again. Silence can feel safe once more. Trust can return, not as innocence, but with deeper meaning. He is still there. He always has been. And now, once again, it is just them together. The Father knows how heavy their heart has been. Not merely tired or worn out, but heavy in a way sleep cannot fix and rest cannot reach. They wake up carrying a nameless weight, and they go to sleep with that heavy burden still pressing down. They have learned to function with it, smiling through the pain, moving forward even when something deep inside feels bruised and broken. But he sees it. He has always seen the quiet sadness they rarely admit, even to themselves. It is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet and constant, a low ache that never fully fades. They rarely speak of it, unwilling to burden anyone else with their pain. They tell themselves that others have it worse, that they must be grateful and stronger by now, so they tuck it away and keep going. Yet as his child, hiding it well does not make it small. They have felt misunderstood in ways that cut deep. People hear their words but completely miss their heart. They see what they do, but never how much it costs. They long to be truly seen, not admired or praised, just understood. There were moments they wanted someone to ask how they were and stay to hear the answer. When that never happened, they simply learned to stay quiet, and silence became another heavy weight they carried. They have also felt unseen, even around other people. They showed up, helped, and listened, yet still felt entirely invisible. They wondered if anyone noticed how much effort it took just to be there. That kind of loneliness does not come from being alone. It comes from feeling emotionally disconnected while still showing up every single day. He knows how deeply that hurts. Let him explain this gently now. What they have been carrying is not just physical exhaustion. It is spiritual weight. Physical fatigue comes from doing too much. Spiritual weight comes from carrying burdens that were never meant to rest on their soul. They have been holding worries, expectations, responsibilities, and fears that should have been placed in his hands. Not because they doubted him, but because they felt they had to hold everything together. They told themselves that if they let go, everything would fall apart. They believed that being strong meant handling things entirely on their own. So, they kept pushing forward, even when their heart begged for rest. Eventually, that endless caring bred a deep heaviness. Not because they were failing, but because they were human. They only did what seemed necessary to survive. The cost of carrying everything alone is high for his child. It slowly drains their joy. It dulls hope, turning prayer into an exhausting chore instead of a sanctuary. It makes silence deeply uncomfortable because that is exactly where the weight feels heaviest. This is where their heart has felt heavy. Not from brokenness, nor a lack of faith, but because they were never meant to walk this path alone. God wants to replace their guilt with compassion right now. They have judged themselves harshly for feeling this way. They kept telling themselves they should be over it by now. They wondered why their faith did not make the burden lighter. But the truth is clear, they were never weak. Feeling heavy does not mean they have failed. It simply means they have been strong too long without rest. True strength is not hiding emotion, nor is it ignoring pain. It is knowing when to stop carrying what was never theirs to hold. And God is inviting them into that very strength today. The kind that rests, the kind that deeply trusts, the kind that releases. God has watched them carry burdens quietly. He saw them push forward when their heart wanted to collapse and weep. He watched them choose endless responsibility over rest, putting others first, choosing endurance over honesty. Yet, God does not look at them with disappointment. He looks at them with deep compassion. He sees someone who cared deeply, who tried hard, who refused to give up. They were never weak. They were just tired. They were overloaded, stretched thin by the weight of life and expectations and the constant pressure to keep going. And yet, they showed up. They still loved. They still hoped, even when that hope felt fragile. That matters more than they know. And now, He is asking His child to let Him carry what they no longer can. Not later. Not when they feel completely ready. Right now, they do not need to explain everything. They do not need to justify their exhaustion. They only need to let Him into those guarded places. Let Him into the heaviness, into the quiet sadness they rarely name. They are completely safe to rest here. They are safe to be honest. They have nothing to prove to Him. They do not have to earn relief or pretend to be strong right now. He will be strong for them as they finally release what they have been holding. The heavy burden won't vanish all at once, but it will begin to lift. Breathing gets easier. Their thoughts will slow. Their heart will soften. It is not weakness, just the start of healing. They must remember this and let it settle deep. They were never weak, just carrying too much alone, and they no longer have to do that anymore. The Father is there, and He is not leaving. There are deep, heavy burdens they have carried inside, never spoken out loud to anyone. Questions they buried deep, terrified of what those doubts might actually mean. Thoughts they silenced, dreading they might seem ungrateful to those around them, faithless or weak. But God knows them all. He heard those silent cries before they could even force their minds to think of something else. Nothing they have wondered has ever shocked Him. None of their hard questions could ever push Him away. There were quiet moments when they wondered if they were enough. They never spoke those words to anyone, barely admitting it to themselves, yet the doubt still lingered in their minds' dark shadows. They wondered if they were too flawed, too slow, and too inconsistent to matter. They constantly compared themselves to others, feeling like they were falling short in ways they couldn't fix. But God speaks truth to them now. That question never came from truth. It rose from weariness, which always distorts reality. They also wondered about their purpose, asking why they were here. What were they supposed to do with their life? Others seemed so incredibly sure, driven, and secure, while they felt utterly lost and behind, wondering if they missed a turn, or if they had taken a wrong turn, putting them permanently off course. They feared that maybe their life was meant to stay painfully small. But He saw that quiet fear and never judged them. There were doubts they felt ashamed of. Doubts about God, and if He was actually listening. Doubts about whether prayer truly mattered. Guilt consumed them for those thoughts, so they tried to push them away quickly, telling themselves that faithful people do not think like that. Yet even faithful people struggle with those thoughts sometimes. Struggle does not break belief. Questions do not stop love. They feared the future in ways they rarely admitted. Not loud fears, but quiet ones. Dreading being alone. Afraid of never becoming the person they hoped to be. Terrified they would look back one day and realize they survived, but never lived. They worried about time slipping away. Always worried about making the wrong choices. They worried that letting hope rise again would only lead to disappointment. Those fears sat heavy in their chest, even when trying to stay positive. But He responds to each fear gently, not with correction, but with truth. They are enough, not for what they achieve, but because they are His. Their worth was never something they were meant to earn. It was spoken over them before they ever took a breath. They do not become valuable through perfection. They are valuable because He chose them. Flaws do not disqualify them. Those flaws simply make room for grace. He is their everything, the source of their joy, peace, and strength. Their purpose has never been lost. They have not missed it, and they have not ruined it. Purpose is not a fragile moment that vanishes if they make one wrong choice. Purpose unfolds through relationship, not pressure. Every season they walked through taught them something they truly needed. Even the detours shaped them. He can weave meaning from every single part of their story. Nothing is wasted. Their doubts do not scare him. They do not offend him. He would rather they bring them to light than bury them under forced faith. Honest doubt opens the door to a deeper trust. Silence builds walls. When they hide their questions, they only grow heavier. When they bring those questions to him, they soften. He is not threatened by their honesty, he welcomes it. Their fears about the future do not mean they lack faith. They mean they care deeply, wanting their life to truly matter. They want their choices to mean something, a desire that came from him. Fear becomes harmful only when it keeps them silent and still. When they bring it to him, it loses the power to control them. He wants them to understand this clearly. They are not broken for struggling. They are human, living in a world that demands certainty while offering very little of it. Of course, questions arise. Of course, fear whispers. Of course, they wonder if they are doing or becoming enough. That does not mean they are failing, but that they are growing. He normalizes this struggle because he walked among humanity. He knows what it is to feel misunderstood, to carry that heavy unseen weight. He knows what it means to pray in deep anguish. He does not stand far above their experience. He steps right into it, which is why they can trust him with what they never say aloud. They do not need to clean up their thoughts before bringing them to him. They do not need to sort out their doubts first. To bring them as they are, letting honesty replace hiding and truth replace pretending. This is how trust deepens, not through perfect belief, but through real relationship. Trust grows when they realize they do not have to perform faith for him. He is not impressed by polished words. He is moved by open hearts. When they finally allow themselves to say what they feared to say, something shifts inside them. The weight lessens. The fear loosens. The distance they felt begins to close. He already knows everything they have ever wondered. Nothing needs to stay unspoken between them. They are safe to be real with him, safe to question. They are safe to admit fear. As they do, trust grows quietly, steadily, deeply, because they will finally experience what it feels like to be fully known and still fully loved. They do not walk forward alone. They never have. And now, they no longer have to walk in silence either. There were moments when no one else saw them, but he did. Moments when the room was full, yet their heart felt empty. Moments when laughter surrounded them, but they felt separate, like they were watching life from behind glass. They wondered why connection felt so distant, why understanding seemed just out of reach. They told themselves to be grateful, to be strong, not to complain. And so they carried loneliness quietly, believing hiding it was safer than explaining it. They became skilled at appearing strong in front of others. They learned how to smile at the right moments, how to answer, "I'm fine," without hesitation, how to keep conversations light when their heart felt heavy. They did not want to worry anyone. They did not want to seem needy. They did not want to be the one who always needed support. So they showed up composed, capable, steady, even when something inside them was breaking. And while others admired their strength, they did not see its cost. There were nights when they finally allowed themselves to cry, alone, quietly. They cried into pillows so no one would hear. They wiped their tears quickly in case someone walked in. Sometimes they cried without knowing exactly why. The tears came from accumulation, not one moment, but many. Disappointments piled on disappointments. Unspoken grief stacked on silent fear. They cried because holding it together all day left no strength for the night. In those moments when they felt most alone, he was there. Not as a distant observer, not watching from afar, but close, closer than they realized. He sat with them in the quiet. He felt the ache in their chest. He knew the thoughts racing through their mind as they stared into the dark. They may have felt abandoned, but they were never alone. Even when they could not feel him, he was present. Every tear they cried was collected. None were wasted. None fell unnoticed. They did not cry in vain. Each tear carried a story, a weight, a prayer, even when no words were spoken. He understood what each one meant. He knew which tears came from loss, which came from exhaustion, which came from longing to be understood. And he did not rush them to stop. He did not tell them to be stronger. He let them cry, knowing release is not weakness, just honesty. They needed someone to see them, Not the version they show the world, but the real them. Their tired self. Their hurting self. The one who kept going, even when it hurt. He saw that version of them long before anyone else did. He saw them when they felt overlooked. He saw them when their efforts went unnoticed. He saw them when their kindness was taken for granted. He saw them when they wondered if anyone would notice if they stopped trying. Like a father, he validates their pain rather than minimizing it. What they felt was real. Loneliness hurts deeply, especially when surrounded by a crowd. Being strong all the time is exhausting. Crying alone leaves marks on the heart that do not fade easily. They were not imagining it. They were not being dramatic. They were responding to deep emotional needs that went unmet for too long. There were moments they wished someone would ask how they were and actually stay to listen. Moments when they wanted permission to rest, to fall apart, and to be held instead of holding everything together. They felt guilty for wanting that, telling themselves to be grateful for what they had. But longing for connection does not mean they are ungrateful. It means they were created for relationship. He was present in every moment they thought they were invisible. When they sat quietly while others talked around them. When they helped everyone else, but felt no one helping them. When they gave encouragement while needing it themselves. He saw them. He honored those moments, even when no one thanked them. Even when no one acknowledged the effort it took just to be there. They may have wondered why he did not remove that loneliness sooner. Why he did not send someone at the exact moment they needed them. He asks them to listen with compassion now. He was working in unseen ways. He was shaping their heart to recognize depth. He was teaching them the difference between being surrounded and being connected. He was preparing them to value real presence, including his own, in a way that would last. They are not unseen now. They never were alone. They were held in moments when they felt forgotten. They were comforted even when they felt empty. They were loved even when they doubted their worth. And now, he wants them to feel this truth settle inside them. He sees them fully. He sees the strength it took to survive quietly. He sees the courage it took to keep showing up. He sees the tenderness they protected even when life tried to harden them. Let this awareness change how they see themselves. They were not weak for crying alone. They were not broken for feeling lonely. They were responding honestly to pain. And he was responding with presence. Even when they could not sense him, he was there, steady, patient, attentive. As they sit with these words now, let them feel seen, not rushed, not judged, not analyzed, just seen. They do not have to explain themselves here. They do not have to justify their feelings. He already understands. And as they allow themselves to receive this truth, something inside them will soften. The loneliness will lose its grip. The memory of being unseen will be replaced with the certainty that they were never alone. They are seen now. They always were, and they always will be. His child, this message exists now because timing is not accidental in his kingdom. He does not speak when it is convenient. He speaks when it is necessary. He does not arrive early to impress, and he does not arrive late to apologize. He arrives when hearts are ready, and when moments can still be redeemed. And this moment right now is exactly that. Not a second sooner, not a moment later. It could not have come earlier, because they were not yet who they needed to be to receive it. Earlier they were still learning how to survive. They were learning how to endure disappointment, how to stand after loss, how to keep going when answers did not come. If he had spoken this message to them then, it would have sounded like noise or pressure. They might have heard the words, but they would not have understood their weight. They were still becoming. They were still being shaped. Their heart was still learning how to listen without fear. Earlier, they needed protection more than clarity. They needed shelter more than instruction. They needed to learn that they could survive pain without losing themselves. So, he waited. Not because he was distant, but because he was careful. Love does not rush what can be harmed by being revealed too soon. Some truths require depth to hold them. True depth is only forged over time, through experience, deep struggle, and quiet endurance. That was what they were building without even realizing. But this message cannot wait. It cannot be delayed for a more comfortable or calmer season. If it came any later, hesitation would harden into habit, and questions would turn into resignation. They would begin to accept situations that were never meant to be permanent. God will not allow that. He loves them too much to let delay define them. There are moments when waiting protects them, and other moments when waiting costs them dearly. This is one of those times where delay steals far more than it saves. This is why they feel a gentle urgency pressing on their heart right now. Not panic, not fear, but pure awareness. Something deep inside them knows this matters. They might not fully understand why yet, but they sense this moment is different. That is divine alignment beginning. When heaven and their heart start to agree, clarity rises up quietly. Divine timing is never about clocks and calendars. It is about readiness meeting divine purpose. And right now, those two things have met inside them. This exact version of them had to exist for this message to land properly. Not their younger self who hoped easily, but broke quickly. Nor their older self who might grow cautious and closed. It is them, the soul that has felt pain, yet remains open. The one who has been disappointed, but is still listening. The one who knows what it means to be tired, yet still longs for something real. They write Amen. God trusts their word completely when Scripture is their anchor and guide. And they share this message.